Go ahead. He's working on it. I just sent him out. Actually, let me get him back just so before I start, so that All right. Well, we're going to just get started and let the others get here when they can. Hi, everyone. So, John connected us with Ginny Lamere, who's going to talk to us today about that E in STEM, how one school approaches engineering. And Ginny has been working at the Carlisle Public Schools, which I guess is one of several connections. John, with K through 8th grade classes, introducing engineering activities. And before she was in the public schools, apparently decades ago, was working at DEC with John. And Ginny designed chips that made up the CPUs of computers before you put all those gates on one chip. many chips in a CPU. And she holds a Bachelor of Science in Engineering in Electrical Engineering and Computer Science from Princeton. So a fellow Princeton alum. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how all these young people practice their engineering skills. All right. Thanks, Ginny.
Thank you very much for having me. As I said, I'm Ginny Lamere, and my job is to bring more engineering into the K through 8 system. So I try to explain to kids that engineers solve problems. Engineering is not a math problem. There's always more than one solution, and you can learn more from failure than success. And that it's reiterative. So we build something, we make it better, And I often bring up telephones and cars as the obvious thing. Now, I'm teaching the engineering design process. For K through 2, we try to make that pretty simple. So we use this. You have a problem, you come up with a few solutions, you make a prototype, you build it, you test it, what went wrong, and fix that up. In our school, we use No Atom. It's a science firm out of the North Shore that gives us all of the curriculum and all the materials for those 3 grades. And this is how they define the engineering design process. For most projects, kids do have to write out all their materials and come up with different solutions and draw out a pretty detailed design before they start to build. This is what you'll find on my wall, because I try to be a minimalist for kids so that they can easily pick it up. So here's most of the projects that I am doing with children. The ones that are bold, we're going to be talking about. There's teachers are scheduled with me, and teachers stay in the room with me because I'm not actually a teacher, so you can't leave me alone with 20 children, which is probably very good for them and good for me. Also, teachers are very busy just trying to keep up with all of the material that's in the frameworks that they're supposed to cover. So I actually have a hard time getting time from teachers. So I have interdisciplinary projects with the art teacher and the librarian because they have a much looser curriculum. So these are some of the things I have been doing with them, and also I've been connecting with the music teachers in our school also. So we have first graders designing instruments out of recycled material. So I'd like to get going with second grade. In our school, the Iditarod is taught. So in second grade, the Iditarod is a dog race in Alaska. So kids are familiar with the mushers, some of the dogs, certainly the route, the geography, checkpoints, and they're very familiar with the different parts of a sled. So they come to me after that unit, or at the end of that unit, and each child is given a tray of the same Legos, and they are told, okay, go build a sled, and you have to first draw it and label it, and that has to be approved by a teacher before they go on and build it. So then they build it, and I have a pretty steep slope that they send it down, and their goal is that it should go down straight and that it shouldn't lose any parts. As you can imagine, that doesn't always happen. So they're then sent back to the desk to improve it. They tell them to improve at least one part of their sled. Then they come back and they talk about what they improved and send it down again. I would say for the most part, this works very well, although two children decided to make their sled taller, and that was not a good solution. And so that's okay, engineers don't always make the right choice. So we just try again.
So how long do you spend with each class? Same for
No.
each grade?
No, sometimes I get weeks of like 5th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, a couple weeks with 6th grade. 3rd grade is in and out of my class for shorter projects, so it's probably 7 or 8 days over a whole school year. 2nd grade, we'll spend 2 days doing the Iditarod sleds, and then they'll come back. I have pulleys on my ceiling. I have block and tackles, so they'll come back when they're doing simple machines, and we'll be lifting desks. They'll be lifting desks. So it's less, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, it's the hardest to get their time, because the teachers are graded on how well the kids read, not how well they design anything. So 3rd grade, we do windmills, because they're learning about forces in nature. And this is a styrofoam ball, and their job is to put the blades in correctly to make a windmill. They're very good at making weather vanes, making those blades 90 degrees to that circumference rather than a windmill. But that's okay. They can just pull them out of the styrofoam and try to get that 45-degree angle. They are going to be taking data on, you'll see a cup on the far left. That is filled with marbles. Their job is to figure out how many marbles their windmill can lift with 2, 4, and 6 blades. I can tell you this is exciting. Some students do exceedingly well and fill that cup. They would just like a bigger cup, which we do not get them, because they're close. I mean, 22, 23 marbles is about the max. And there's, I probably have 12 small fans on the desks that they're using as well. So again, they do this in a balanced configuration, and then they do 2, 4, and 6 blades in an unbalanced configuration. And again, they're taking data, and they're excited. This certainly has their attention. In 4th grade, I do a variety of things, but one thing is this water storage collector unit. So students in 4th grade don't always, they're still learning about materials, and they don't always understand how things work. So you can see there's a black tray, there's a styrofoam plate, a couple cups, a styrofoam ball, a piece of foil. So, this one obviously is going to do really well. It's got 2 cups that are totally intact. Many kids try to put one cup on top of the other and cut out one of the bottoms and then just use tape. But of course, tape is not a particularly good waterproof material. So anyway, this is the project. So what is interesting is that they first have to design it on paper and label it. Then they build it, we weigh it. Then I have a deep sink, so I have a watering can and I put it in the bottom of the sink and fill it till it is overflowing. This takes about 20 or 30 seconds. Then you weigh it again. So now you know how much that particular device stored. We put it on the windowsill for a week and they come back and weigh it again and see how much has evaporated. And then we have a very lively class discussion on which designs collected the most water and which designs had the least evaporation. And just because you might have collected the most doesn't mean in the end you had the most a week later. So they have a piece of foil. Some kids use that to block the sun coming in from the window. So the designs are always unique, and it's intriguing. Fourth grade also does trebuchets, but they are not weapons of mass destruction. In our classroom, a farmer is trying to disperse seeds using a trebuchet, and the seeds are cotton balls. Still, though, you'd be amazed at how far they can even send a cotton ball. And people get hit all the time, but it's okay, they're just cotton balls. Some children will figure out that height really helps on the top left, but you can see how even a simple design, they'll get that to work to some extent. Again, you're going to design it, test it, and you get to redesign it. But you have to keep using the same craft stick. You don't get more of those. We put flattened marbles as a weight. We'd give them those as a counterbalance. So fifth grade has been studying simple machines. What we do here is that we give them, I have a lot of connects. So students are given, for a couple days, they're given directions on how to make things like scissors, hammers, chisels, a variety of simple machines out of connects. Gets them used to using connects and also shows them how simple machines are in many of the things we use every day. Then they build a crane out of connects. Again, they're following a drawing. But then they have a model for how a crane works. And then we hand them this bag of stuff and tell them to go build a crane that could lift 10 marbles 30 centimeters horizontally and vertically. This is a great project. The kids come up with quite a few different designs. The one on the far left, you can see there's two wedges there on the bottom. When that group of two first made that, it was very tippy. So they put those two wedges on so that two wheels would always remain on the surface. But it might be skidding this way or this way, depending on where the top of the crane was. So very creative. It's a lot of engineering. They just keep making it better. I am always amazed at their uniqueness. Sixth grade, we have a giant shake table. It's about 2/3 of one of these tables. It's big, and it moves in 3 dimensions, so it's terrific. So we give kids cardboard, oak tag paper, paper clips, straws, toothpicks, and their first job is to, they get a little bit of training on torsion, compression, and forces on structures. And then they're supposed to build a 2-story structure. They try and figure out how to make these connections because these are difficult. And then we put it on the shake table, and some work, some don't. But that's okay. They figure out how to make connections to the cardboard that will take a lot of shaking. Then we give them all new material to make a 3-story structure. And they're given this takes a number of days to do this. But then they have a 3-story one, like the one in the middle, and we put that on the shake table. If it should survive left and right and up and down, we then put sandbags on the 2nd and 3rd floors. They're in groups of 3 or 4 kids generally for this. This is generally a 2 to 2.5 week activity, and you can bet that there is a great deal of excitement when these things are on the shake table, because it's big and you can really shake. You can make almost anything break. I think I've had one that has not totally collapsed, but collapsing is okay. The kids don't mind that either. And how long it lasts is certainly part of the data. Okay, 7th grade. Until this year, we are changing curriculum this year, but 7th grade has been biology for the whole year. And kids are learning about organisms and how things move, how things grow. So the month of June, they come to the engineering room to learn about robots. So the first robots that we make, we just want them, we use Hummingbird kits. Hummingbird was started from a CMU grad. They are very flexible. I have a kit up here so you can come take a look. But the first robot they have to do is just to make LEDs flash on and off in different colors. And also they use servos, and they're to make either arms or wings or tails, something that moves. And this gets them to understand how the robot parts work. So here are some of the projects. We do have a wide variety of materials for them to use. So there is a lot of creativity here.
How do you cope this? Are you using Scratch?
Yes, yes. CMU also has their own language. We use that for the first 2 years, but kids have been using Scratch for other projects in school, so it's
CMU?
Carnegie Mellon University. My apologies. So,
how early are they exposed to Scratch in the school?
Scratch Junior, they start around first grade, I believe, for Scratch Junior. And then they'll do more Scratch through the librarian, our media librarian, somewhere in 4th and 5th grade. Also the 7th grade, this same teacher also teaches an after-school class in Scratch as well.
Do they have a one-to-one device, or are they on mobiles?
6th, 7th, and 8th every child has an iPad. And the lower grades, you have a cart of laptops, at least one cart per grade. There's usually 3 or 4 sections per grade. They are trying to get iPads one-to-one for kindergarten or first grade. I don't know if that has been done yet. But there's a lot of technology in Carlisle. You are not usually waiting to get laptops. If you need laptops, someone will get them for you. So that's not a problem at our school. Okay, but I thought I'd show you some of the first things that these kids do. So then they're using a light sensor when the cat is doing a different activity, whether there's that sensor can have this other one, I just want to show you, this is early on in these kids' production. And I just want to show you that they're figuring out how to...
Yeah, we had to take an extra 5 or 10 minutes.
Because
they...
That is really... This last class did a really good job of making their robots more mobile than I had seen in the past. So as soon as I find a cursor here, I'll go forward. Okay, here's another one. This one was unique. Eyebrows. Try it again.
That's so good.
Please stop. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's scary.
This is nightmare fuel.
Why is everyone making nightmares?
I love this. That's just freestyle dancing.
At this point.
So you like it, and so do the kids. And this is I find the Hummingbird kit's really a very good medium for both girls and boys, because they get to decide what the package is going to look like. So now that they know how to use the LEDs and the servos, we then go on to, here's a couple more. I forgot.
Whoa, that's actually really cool.
He's doing this.
And then this one. Yep, go ahead.
He gets angry when you don't pet him. Yeah.
How much time did the students spend on those?
So the 7th graders come into the engineering room for the month of June. for this year, that's going to be a very long time. So usually they're in there for about 2.5 weeks. And so I would say that we try to, that first project just takes about 3 days. The first day you're just teaching them how to program. The second day they're doing the building. And the third day you're doing the show and tell. This next one takes a pretty serious week. So as I told you, they were learning about organisms and how they move. So they are going to figure out how to make an earthworm. And then they're going to make that earthworm move. So if you remember how earthworms move, they put down an anchor, and then they stretch out, and then they put in another anchor, and then they pull in and pull in. So it's like an 8-step programming process. And the teacher here has done a great job in having them figure out those 8 steps. So they also, we have to give them, we give them X-Acto knives to cut up cardboard to make these earthworm robots. So we have a short class on how to responsibly use X-Acto knives, which it's scary. But I haven't lost any fingers yet, so that's good. But I thought I'd...
Somewhat dull blade.
I don't know, it was close.
It's Ben.
So we have earthworm robot races down the center here.
Okay, well, he's moving.
We're at one heck of a pace. We're looking at maybe a 45-second finish.
What is that now?
We're still under 30 seconds.
So again, there's a great deal of excitement for these races. I thought I'd show you, I brought in, this is a Superman one. This was made by 2 girls, and they hands down beat every other worm. So it's fun, and then if there's time, they'll do a third project, and then we give them motors, because vehicles are always interesting. So last year we had enough time for them to build vehicles, and I'm sure we'll have time this year, because we're going to almost July this year.
What's it saying?
You can't touch this.
See it, but there's lights. There's lights on the end of his airplane. You guys can't see it, get the wires out of the way, but you get the understanding. That picture of the giraffe in the first a couple pictures ago, that giraffe actually moved also. This is exciting. Kids really like this. And I think it's a great intro to why you want to be an engineer, because we have fun, right? So let's hope I can get this to go here. Okay, so 8th grade. So I have a 30 by 30 foot room. I've got a wall full of cabinets. I have counters on 2 sides and windows on one side. I have a great room for doing engineering. And I have a lot of storage, which is also helpful because there's a lot of stuff that you need for engineering. So 8th grade, they are building egg carriers. And I set up 6 zip lines across 1/3 of the room. And yes, kids have to get up on chairs to be able to launch them. So they come down on a zip line. This is an upside down stool, and there's a plastic basket there that is padded. So the job is to have a carrier come down and release an egg without breaking into the basket. This is about a 2.5 to 3 week deal also, because they have a lot to do. I don't expect you to read through this, but I want you to realize that every team gets a wide variety of material. And that is what makes this work, because no 2 are the same, because everyone is going to use that much material differently. They don't have to use all of it, and they have to keep track of what they're using, what they destroy, and also what they can return. So there's lots that also gets returned at the end of this project. But it's a lot, and their job is, it's usually groups of 3 students, and they have to come up with an initial plan, and they have to get a diagram and label it, and we approve that, and then they're off and running. So there's levels of mastery here. First, just get the egg down the zip line without falling out. Get it into the basket. If that works, we have metal weights that are about this big. They're just thin and they're heavy, And so see if you can still make your carrier work with that much weight. Make it work with 2 of those weights. And then you're allowed to take the weights off and see if you can slow down your carrier so that it takes more than 3 seconds to get from the top to the bottom. So students are doing a fair amount of journaling here. Every day they have to write down what they have changed. Did it work? Did it not work? Every time they reach one of these levels, there's a picture of that device. And they also are keeping track of timing. So they're using their iPads and timing this and videoing it because they have to have data points for all of these things. But the teacher and I are not so concerned about whether they make it to all these levels, but rather every day they are graded on class participation, teamwork, and creativity. Yes?
Do you group them in girls and boys specifically, or do you let them pick?
I don't let them pick. And they're, some are all boys, some are all girls, and some are mixed. It really is more about personalities rather than gender. But I would say that everyone is very engaged in this. But it is this teamwork and creativity. You know, we're giving points out as we walk around because they do extraordinary things with ordinary materials. And if we think that it's particularly unique, we can give that team a point for that day for creativity. It may or may not work, because that's not necessarily what's important. What is important is that you are trying, and it's that reiterative piece here of engineering. Keep trying to try different things and make it better. This is exciting. So, one other thing. For all of this testing, when there's the 6 zip lines, they are using plastic eggs, and they have filled them with clay to what they think a large egg weighs. On the final test day, there's just 1 zip line. We use real eggs, and there's a fair amount of plastic involved on the floor, because you're going to have a disaster. So I have some models here that the kids have given me, but I just thought I'd show you some of the creativity. The one on the left, that wooden piece, is actually on elastic, and it comes down. When it hits the bottom, it comes down, and the egg just gracefully rolls down that ramp. You can see in the middle one, for their earlier trials, they didn't have that black piece is a half a pipe of styrofoam, so it's light, but they put it on there to slow it down. They don't always have marbles every year, depending on if there's allergies, latex allergies. We don't have any, but last year there was no allergies. So you can see that they're all different. Here's a good view of the metal plate on your top left. So you can see that they're all different, right? And it's exciting, and the fact that you can stand on chairs and send things screaming down, I think it's very engaging. So these are very fast, but I thought I'd show you a quick.
Whoa!
Can you play that a couple times?
I could, yeah.
Whoa!
Remember, even slowly, they only go 3 seconds. So.
Whoa!
And this one is ever so slightly down there. Yeah. And since they stop the timer when the egg actually hits the bottom, that one actually did pretty well in terms of the speed thing. So anyway, so the eggs, yes.
So you at the start of this, you mentioned you had an inventory. You have to keep track of the materials in there.
Right.
Do you actually reward people for using the least amount of resources?
Actually, we don't do that. We don't.
Capability of it? Least expensive material. What's recyclable? What's not?
Sustainable engineering.
Lots of those are not very good. It's very sustainable. We have not done that. We take points off if they have destroyed material on purpose. There's some styrofoam pieces, little blocks that are quite useful, but some kids just take them apart, and that's a point off. Yes.
So just quickly on the same list of materials that each group gets, they all do the same thing. Are they allowed to, if they don't need something in their kit but they need an extra from somebody, they're not allowed to trade or barter?
No, because in engineering, you always have a budget, and hence, and you also have a time limit as well. So it's not like John can contest. No, I can't have another $100,000 for that for another piece of material. So no, they are not allowed to do that. And actually, that is even from the second grade level. You are given that tray of Legos, and that is your tray. It's not a time for you to be sharing with your buddy. You only have this material, and he only has that material, and that's what you were given. So we are trying to show that there are constraints in engineering from an early age. So no sharing. Our school has 2 3D printers, 2 MakerBots. One is small, one is large. And in 8th grade, you learn about velocity and acceleration. So they've done all sorts of serious time trials in their own room. But I'm given a couple days to teach them Tinkercad. Tinkercad is a free 3D modeling software off the web. And they had to design cars. So they were given constraints as to how big that car could be, how big the wheels, or how small the wheels could be, and how thin anything could be. And this is what they came up with. In the top left, we used white filament, and they were allowed to use markers to color it. Obviously, the bottom right is just gray. They can do some coloring. But you can see the wide variety of shapes here. I have not met a child yet who is not interested in using Tinkercad. It is very easy to use. We use it from 3rd grade up, and I will consider using it with 2nd graders next year. So what happens is they design this, they send over their files to me, and I print it in the engineering room. And then they have races to see how far down a particular ramp, how many tiles it will go. That's why these got to 14 tiles, so that they were the winners. I think that all kids should be learning 3D modeling, because I think that's going to be part of our future. And as I said, kids are totally into it. So I'd like to go into the City X project. How this works is that on Planet X, there are a set of children that are having problems. And they reach back to a 3rd grade class and say, I'm having trouble with dirty water, or an asteroid's going to hit our planet, or we need a better, I have a broken arm, but I don't have a way to make a cast. And so there's all these cards with specific students, and our students pick a student and their problem. They go off and write a description on a device that they would like to make for this to help City X. So they first have a paragraph of writing. They do a diagram on paper with pencil, with labels. Then they design it in clay in art class. And then they come to the engineering room, and I teach them Tinkercad. And they then put their devices in Tinkercad in 3D modeling. I just thought I'd show you what a build plate looks like. This is probably a dozen different projects that I have put all together, and overnight it will print. So I just thought I'd show you how that looks. So you can see like this lid goes on that cylinder, and you can see just to the right of that is a set of glasses, and there are stories behind each of these, and it's the stories that make these devices interesting. But 3rd graders are incredibly good at Tinkercad. They do not need much help. I tried to show you a picture of Tinkercad on the left. You essentially pull different objects from a library of shapes. You can pull it over, you can stretch them, thin them out, or make them whatever dimensions you want. And here are some of the 3D prints. And I thought I'd just tell you about this one in particular. So the story behind this one is that the little girl on City X was having trouble understanding other people who live in City X, because they all had different languages. So each one of these legs, you can listen to a particular language, and the language that you want to hear comes out the top. So it's an interpretive device. As you can see, they're very creative, and the orange one, that particular child was having trouble hearing. So these are special hearing devices you put on your ears. 4th grade, again, I'm working with the librarian and the art teacher, and we are doing castles. So while in the library, the kids they have to pick a castle. What castle do you like? And they have to figure out who built it, when was it built, why was it built, who were they trying to keep out. And then they go into art class and the engineering room, and they're given pretty stiff paper, and we had a variety of tubes for their turrets. Some were thin, some were really fat, some were tall, some were short. And so they went off and designed them and built them. And then also in the engineering room, they had to make drawbridges and also portcullises. A portcullis is here I can probably show you. I'll show you a picture later. It's the thing that is a grid like this that goes up and down in a doorway. Another thing, the last part of this was that they made a 3D model of the program, of their castle in Tinkercad. So you can see on the left there's a little red piece, and that is actually a model of that palace. We had originally thought we would just do castles, but some of the kids picked palaces, so we went with it. So you can see this is a portcullis here. So again, I'm trying to teach pulleys, another simple machine. How do you build a place where you can use pulleys? So these are just different castles. I thought you might want to see them. And also parents came in to see them, so they can see their written work, the model, the 3D model. They can play with the portcullis. This was also a great project. This is the first year we've done this, and it was very fun. So I thought I would break down what I think makes this work at our school. I have a 30 by 30 foot room with a lot of counter space and a lot of open space. Also, since I do work with kids who are kindergarten, 8th grade, I have tables that you can crank down the top so they can be at your knees or about here. Also, I am that dedicated person that runs this room. So I schedule the room, I keep track of the material, I order material if we need it for certain projects. Teachers come with me and we figure out a schedule. And I think engineering intrinsically has a lot of setup and cleanup. And I don't think everyday teachers have the time to do that. So I am that person. Things are already sorted when they come in, and I am doing a fair amount of cleanup as well. That's just part of my job, but I could see why this would be difficult to do just for an individual classroom teacher. Lastly, you're going to need some amount of funding for this. There's some initial investments, such as the Hummingbird kits and obviously laptops. And once you have that investment, every year something is going to break. We've been doing those earthworm robots for about 4 years now, and some of the servos died by the end of June last year, so I'll need to replace those. So I just thought I would point out that there is some cost involved. You obviously saw from many of those projects you are using cheap materials, craft sticks, straws, toothpicks. I have about 60,000 toothpicks I have not yet used. If you need any, just come by. So,
can you give us a clue as to what your budget is, or not? Does it change every year?
It does change every year because my needs change every year. So like the year that I bought the robots, that was several $1,000s of investment. The 3D printers, that was several $1,000s of investment. The filament, we have not been using a lot of filament yet, but I suspect as kids get, by this point, roughly half the students have had some sort of connection with a 3D printer. If I were to say, start designing more and send your stuff to me, I suspect I'd be going through a lot more of that. Carlisle is very fortunate in that it has a parent group that raises money, and that I use that money as opposed to town money. I am paid out of town money. but I'm not actually a teacher, so I'm not part of the teachers' union. And I'm part-time, so my job is to be there when teachers want me. So sometimes I'm there at 8 in the morning, sometimes I'm there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and sometimes I'm there from 8 to 3. But that changes also. So it's a pretty unique setup, but certainly very good. I've been continuing to make more connections with teachers. My hope is to, as I said, middle school is, I'm not getting enough time doing 3D projects with the middle school. So my hope in the fall is to connect with the social studies teachers and start doing projects with them. Because if they're studying ancient Greece, surely we could be doing any number of items that were in ancient Greece. We could duplicate those in 3D modeling. Or Rome, we could do chariots, we could do columns. So I'm constantly reaching out to build this. Yes?
So implicit in, you should have another bullet point, if there's an investment of time to discuss with full-time teachers,
Yes.
integrate,
Yes.
and make connections with the core curriculum to make this work. So that should not be minimized in your, how this model works.
You are correct, because that does take a fair amount of time. And the scheduling part also, because teachers have very few windows of time that they seem to be able to come to my class. Because they've got art and music and PE and special services that they have to work around. So that's true. Yes?
I think you should also have a bullet point for the person, which is the many skills that you bring to this. You have to be able to work with kids, you have to come up with creative ideas, you have to anticipate where they're going to go off track and steer them without telling them. I mean, there's so many things that you do. You ever make a list of that, or is that the next slide?
No, that isn't the next slide. Thank you for realizing all those things, yes. I think teachers, when I first came into the school system, teachers were, particularly the teachers of younger grades, were concerned that they went into teaching younger grades because they didn't understand engineering. And I think by working with me, they have figured out that, I can do this, it's not so scary, because we're not doing rocket science until 8th grade. They do bottle rockets in 8th grade, but not necessarily with me. So I try to make it so that the teachers are not so afraid of engineering. And there are certainly kids who are really good at this at a very young age. In fact, kindergartners and first graders intrinsically like working with their hands. They're very good at building things. And they're not at all afraid of making things break. They have no worries at that age. I could tell you about 2 other projects that I do not have slides on. In 4th grade, they do permeable concrete. And so you're given large gravel, small gravel, and sand, and you have to figure out using a relatively a cup about this size, and then you are given up to 5 small cups of, you have to figure out whether you want 2 small cups of gravel or 2 small cups of large gravel or sand, and figure out what combination of that would make a good permeable concrete. And so you pour water on it, and you're using a timer to find out how long it takes for that water to get below the top level. And then in 5th grade, they do a water filter, also with a cup about that size, and they're given felt, cotton balls, nylon mesh, gravel, and again, what would you like to do, what materials would you like to do to make a good water filter? And then they're testing the water when it comes out to see how clear it is. That also has a component of how expensive that filter is, because cotton balls and felt and nylon, everything has a cost associated with it. So is there any other questions that you might have? Yes?
So when you have these kids from whatever class, whether it's a art class or science class or whatever, what is the chunk of time that you have them for? Because you don't have them for the whole day, but these are some pretty long projects. So do you see them every day for 50 minutes, or Is it a block, you have a large block of time, but you see them every day or every other day? I'm just wondering what's the cohesiveness.
Okay. It changes depending on, so if I'm doing something with the art teacher and the library teacher, then I'm using those slots. So those are generally 45-minute slots. And a project may take 3 weeks or 4 weeks, like the castle one took closer to 5. But we had a lot of snow days in there, so maybe we could have done it in 4 weeks.
But it would be a 45-minute increment? Correct.
For 6th, 7th, and 8th, they have more of a block situation. So what happens is that there'll be a science class every day. So say there's 4 sections. I'll have all 4 sections every day. And some of those sections are 45 minutes, but they can be as large as an hour and a quarter, which allows them to do a great deal of testing on those days. But generally, I would say 45 minutes would be a block of time that I would see them. For the Legos, I only have a certain number of trays of materials. So they'll come one day for 45 minutes to an hour generally, and they'll do the design and building. Then they'll come the next day for another hour for the testing, rebuilding, and retesting. So it's a bit dependent, but 45 minutes would be the right thing. Yes?
My question is, how do you assess your experience, girls versus boys? And if you have girls who are somewhat reticent, how do you engage them? Additionally, I would assume it's way different from 2nd and 3rd grade to 7th and 8th when you get into adolescence. So you have a whole bunch of experience in that.
I would say the girls in middle school are very strong. Some of them are just, they're competitive and they're very good at science, and the robot one particularly, some of them are just, they want this thing to beat the boys. And also, that one has a big Superman sign on it, but lots of others put silly gems they can put on. So they make them very decorative, but it has to work before they do any decorating. But that's a hook for them, because if they can decorate it the way they want, that's very good. I don't see many gender differences in the early grades. Certainly, some of these projects, all of these projects, are difficult for, I would say, 10% of any given class. They are just not good at doing this. Those you're going to sit down and try to make suggestions for. For the crane one, I know that I have actually given them a fair amount of we'll try this for the base, What do you think about this? Will this work? Because you need them to be able to get to a point where they're ready to jump off. But I would say, for the egg carriers as well, they can use the pretty pink straws instead of the dull wooden straws. So we are trying with our materials to find things that make it interesting for them. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes?
So you hear from a lot of districts that, they have to fulfill this engineering component in the curriculum, but teachers aren't trained to do it, nobody knows where to start. Is there some mechanism for the people who are responsible for engineering curricula at the different local districts to connect with each other, share ideas?
So where I've gotten ideas is through MAST, Massachusetts Association of Science Teachers. They have a conference in the fall. Also, the state has a very big STEM conference also in early November. And I just went to the National Science Teachers Association conference in Atlanta.
So are you presenting the work that you guys are doing?
I have not, but that is a place. Maybe I should. This is the first time I've ever spoken in front of a bunch of adults.
Well done.
But those are places that I get ideas. And I think you were right. When I got back from Atlanta, I was thinking, I should be up there because I have some solutions here that they. But that is one place. You should also know that for years, Carlisle did an egg drop where you just went to the top of a second-story stairwell and put one down. But now kids could just find the answer on the internet. So that's why that whole thing changed. It's like we need a different thing that deals with eggs, because We don't want them just to find the answer on the internet. But I think you are right. I think if we could get science teachers in a district to come together and have a workshop, that would be helpful.
That'd be so valuable.
Yes, because they do need some training, and that would be fun.
So, can I ask one more question, following up a little bit? So you've been doing this for 5 years.
Yes.
And you've kind of alluded to some tensions at the start, and
Yes.
tensions in terms of timing and all this stuff. So I'm wondering about the kind of assessment of this as a project in the school in terms of increasing acceptance by teachers, kids. Do you have any even anecdotal of teachers saying kids have brought this back to class, brought some of their skills back to class? I'm sort of looking at.
There are connections with literacy. Engineering is reiterative, as is writing. So the second grade teachers were standing over these kids making their Legos going, this is just like writing class, okay? Remember how you write a story and then we tell you to go improve it and then improve it again? That's what you're doing in engineering too, which I thought was a very good connection. I think, as I said, we use No Atom for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. There are a lot of projects already in that curriculum. Teachers of those grades have certainly figured out that if they give all of their materials to me, I'll get them sorted. They can do the project in my room. They have a great deal of support that way. And also, I also do a lot of the cleanup for them. So that has been an easy sell for them. I would also say that kids like doing this, and it makes them excited. And if they can come back to their classroom and say, boy, that was good. Okay, what are we doing next? As opposed to being, oh no, it's just another thing I have to do. So I think kids also promote this. Also, we try to bring parents in because I think if parents are part of the loop, that also is helpful. They actually are pretty excited that their 3rd graders are working with a 3D printer. So there's excitement there. And so I've had hallway conversations with 2 social studies teachers in the middle school, and they actually said, yes, we should work together because that would be a nice addition to one of these big projects they're doing in social studies, that there is an engineering or a 3D model component. And that would, again, maybe that would be a hook for some of those kids. So yes, I would say that the superintendent and the principals are very supportive of me. And I would, the head of education in Massachusetts has been to my classroom, and he said this would be great to have in every school. Now, yeah, obviously he didn't back that up with making sure that would happen.
Yeah.
Yes, John.
So this department seems to be into assessments more than anything else. How can we assess any of this as to, is it improving the kids' STEM abilities or eagerness to go into engineering, any of that?
That is a hard one. I think they do a fair amount of measuring in class, not that kind of assessment that you're asking for, but they become better measurers. They are certainly...
See the performance assessment of skills.
Right. They are learning how to hot glue, cut cardboard, work with screwdrivers. So I think that those are skills that we should be teaching. I personally try to make sure kids know that they're doing a great job. And I go over and say, you can be a great engineer. And that's just a typical thing that I would say. Girls, I think, also need... there are shy girls also in Carlisle. And I try to tell them, you're good at this. You can go far with this. Work is fun. I mean, we had a lot of fun at work, right? You and I? So, engineering is fun because you're always doing something different. You're always on the cutting edge. And I try to instill that in them because if they don't have parents who are engineers, it's not on the radar, right? So I do try to encourage them. on very quietly. If a girls' team does really well, I'll say, "Girls rule." But I got yelled at the first year I did that, so because you're not supposed to make the boys feel bad either.
I think one thing that's very important is you're also teaching them failure is okay.
Yes.
Going back, you're
Yes.
retreating, regrouping, and coming up with a new plan to make this thing work. It's good.
Yes.
And that's where you really learn.
Correct.
If it works the first time, you really don't learn very much.
Correct.
So
And-
if it's a failure, that's where you really learn the physics and what's actually going on.
Correct. And I tell many of them that I have had to do this project before them, and my first thing didn't work either. My first egg was a disaster. My plastic egg was totally cracked. So I tell them that, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, she didn't get it right. I don't have to get it right on the first time either." So I try to make that. But in terms of your assessment, it seems to me you would have to almost query these kids when they leave. Like, where were they at 4th grade? Where were they at 8th grade? Where are they in 12th grade? And, do they even remember doing anything in the engineering room? What I can tell you is that I have kids in 2nd grade come to me in 3rd grade and go, I'm so glad I'm back in your class. I can't wait to get there. And when 3rd graders are in my class and they see some of the castles and palaces, when do we get to do that? So I know there's excitement that way, but I don't know how I could tell you whether this class is going to make more engineers. But I can tell you if we don't ever show them engineering, they're not going to. They're not going to be there. We should be doing a lot more science in schools because they're going to figure out they're good at it and they like it. And it's not just reading a book. Not that books are bad. Okay. Is there any other? Thank you so much for listening.
So we typically have pizza at lunch and can continue the conversation around the table, but I wanted to make sure people knew also that Ginny brought some examples if you want to get a closer look at some student work.
Come right over, you can see the hummingbird kits, some of the egg carriers, and
yeah, that's 3D models.